I remember saying, what the hell are we doing selling lighting fixtures? It made no sense to me. I want to double my revenue within 5 years. You got to double your jobs, double your employment staff. You don't have to do that with this category. We service a community that can afford everything we're trying to sell them. You just have to be able to communicate the value of what you're trying to add. If you can do that effectively, and we will at some point, you're going to be doing some sort of design on every job that you touch. If there's no lighting designer on the project, it's kind of maddening that you'd be asked to control a fixture that you had nothing to do with specifying. They're swapping out a $20 downlight that might not work with controls, probably flickers, crappy dimming performance, with, maybe a $200 downlight. The goal of this long term, obviously, is to be involved in these projects at the beginning. So it's an investment and it's a commitment to jump into a category like this. But at this point, they kind of have to because everybody's doing it. Really, the common theme is that there's money in it from both sides.
Welcome to the LytePOD, built by LytePOD, the #1 podcast about the people, process, and product of design, all with a little love for light along the way. I'm your host, Sam Corbel, and today I'm really excited to welcome a good friend, Trent Mulligan, to the podcast. Trent is a repeater on the LytePOD, and there's a reason why. I think you're going to find out. His fun fact, he got his whole start in this world because he answered a Craigslist ad. You are a partner in 3 rep firms across multiple states, and you are definitively at the crossroads of something that is happening at a large scale on the custom integration channel, which is an entire new division being built, lighting. And it's not just lights, it's architectural lighting, it's design, it's manufacturing, it's the services that go along with that, it's the programming of it. It's making these beautiful video walls talk to it, right? By the way, this thing is awesome. Thank you so much for making this the background. Today, we're going to dive into how you see this from almost a bird's eye view. But I think what's unique about that bird's eye view is you're in it. It's not like you're just in one state. You've got these 3 companies you work with across multiple states. You see people at varying degrees in their journey to create this opportunity and this business model. And your company is also doing this too. What states do you operate in, and what companies are you a part of?
So I'm a partner in 3 different companies, and I'm the president of all 3. The first being Momentum Group, which is throughout the Rockies from basically Canada down to Mexico, Montana, Wyoming, Eastern Idaho, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and El Paso, Texas. Also a partner in Rio Grande rep firm it's based out of Dallas. It covers TOLA, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, and also in Synapse Sales and Marketing, which is based in Kansas City. It's Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska. So it's about 42-ish% of the geographical territory of the United States and probably about half the buying power. So it means it's a difficult territory for a manufacturer to cover, and it just adds more value to what we do.
Would you look at any specific part of any one of those territories as leading in the world of building lighting and adopting lighting as a product category in this channel?
Our secret sauce is the fact that the organizations are run independently, but the back end lives in Denver. Back end meaning design, support, operations, marketing, and the lighting division, which is we have 3 layouts and quotation specialists, 1 person dedicated full to quotes, and then a person to run it with processes and whatnot. And then obviously we have sales to support that around the channel. But that design is based in Denver, but all 3 companies share in the cost of that. So it makes it really efficient. It's not a cheap thing to do. And the fact that we can do that is the real kind of secret sauce to all 3 organizations. And because of that, I think it's probably put us a little bit ahead of the game. The fixture channel came calling, at least we got into it right before the pandemic in 2020. And I remember saying, what the hell are we doing selling lighting fixtures? It made no sense to me. Shortly after that, the pandemic hit, and then we had time to think about it and dig deep into it and saw what the numbers were and understood why they were coming to us. And then we made a lot of mistakes before we started getting things right because we didn't know what we were doing. And eventually we landed on this division, brought in someone to put it together for us, and then got it running. And essentially we just, like any good rep firm, really what you want to do is you want to be able to provide value for your dealers, especially in a category like this. We haven't seen anything like this since I've been in the industry, this kind of an opportunity. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to educate them and provide enough value for them to confidently go out in the field, sell it, to get jobs. There's a big process that's involved with this because it's so new and it's such a different aspect of what we're doing currently. So are we doing anything different? Probably because of that. I think a lot of rep firms are starting to understand that they have to do something like this. But we've been doing it now for probably 2 years, solid, and it's paying off. We're seeing results from it. As you know, construction, especially in the Denver territory, it can be 3 years before, you get permits pulled before completion. So there's a long pipeline, but there's more immediate sales that come in play as well. So, but we can see the pipe being built. We see the numbers that are there, and it's a long process, but we're definitely starting to see the big, on the hockey stick growth. We're starting to get to that curve. So it's going to start taking off here pretty soon.
Let's rewind to 2020. Lighting was not on your radar. It wasn't on probably any AV dealer's radar. AV dealers, custom integrators, they're interchangeably the same businesses as we talk about them here today. Now lighting is in. It's in full force, and it's only 5 years later. Why is lighting in with the dealers?
I guess there's twofold to that. Why do manufacturers want to come in, and why are dealers interested in getting into bed with it? And I think really the common theme is that there's money in it from both sides. So there's, I think, a big swath of the high-end residential home that's not being catered to. And most of it's just being done with go-to fixtures by electricians that, they get a set of plans and they put them with what they're comfortable in there. And meanwhile, these homeowners are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on finishes, whether it's artwork, carpets, countertops, rugs, furniture, and then they're being severely underlit, whether it's not enough light or poor light that is there. And nobody really knows that because nobody understands what the difference is between good light and bad light. So and that's an educational process, because if somebody's sitting in bad light and they don't know there's any different, then they're fine with it. But once they see good light, then you can't unthink it, right? So I think the manufacturers know that our channel sells high end, so they want us to be able to sell it.
What is high end?
I don't know that there's a specific definition to it. I don't know if it's a square footage or a dollar amount, because it's different in every market. Certainly in my company in Kansas, it's a way different than it is in Aspen. Pretty much anything with technology that goes into a home we touch. And, they put in the network, which is the backbone for everything. It could be security cameras, lighting controls, AV controls, shading, everything with AV. This screen here you're seeing, beautiful off to our right here, Scary. And, there's so much with, architectural speakers, theater speakers, dedicated home theaters. I'm drawing a blank now because there's so much of it.
You mentioned there's money in this. How much money is in this market?
Well, it's substantial. It's not there yet because the channel's still getting into it. But long term, I honestly feel that, and we've done some numbers on this and ran through it. And I think, I would say if they get into this channel, if an integrator gets into the lighting fixtures channel within, I want to say 18 months, they should be doing about 10% of their gross sales. Long term, I think they can double their sales or come close to it, double their gross revenues from lighting fixtures. And what I mean by long term, I mean where they're actually in this, they're actually involved in the design. They're getting the projects at the beginning. They're actually doing the designs. I think they'll work in tangent. There'll still be high-end lighting designers out there, but they'll also, because they have access, they're in all these jobs already. So they're also going to be doing designs. I would anticipate them to partner with lighting designers, or they're going to hire a lighting designer, or there's some designers that now specialize in our channel, meaning they use the fixtures that are available to us, and partner with them. And once they do those, that's what really takes off, because lighting designers design intentionally every little detail, and that's where the fixture count gets up there and the dollars get up there. And once that happens, and they're doing that predominantly on every job, then they'll be able to about double where they are today with doing the same amount of jobs. You don't have to go out and finish, if you're doubling the revenue, oftentimes, if you're looking at that as a company, I want to double my revenue within 5 years, you got to double your jobs, double your employment staff. You don't have to do that with this category because it's the same amount of job. You're already on these jobs. You're just doubling the amount of revenue that you're doing on the jobs already. It's going to take a little bit more labor to do that. You're not doing the install. It's still going to be the electricians doing that. But that's another reason why it's exciting. You're not having to go out and flush for more jobs. You're just making the jobs you have bigger.
You mentioned that they're on the job already, so it's just another thing to sell on the home. I think one of the biggest issues with that statement is the point in construction that dealers actually get onto a job. The lights may actually already be installed or electrical rough-in may be done. How is that a benefit or a curse in the current environment?
It's always been a curse. I always like to say, we're often brought in at the ass end of their project. And it's a difficult thing to do, to try and complete and work with other trades and do so in a manner that's not going to piss anybody off when you're brought in so late. They're usually brought in before lights are installed, but way after decisions have been made. The goal of this long term, obviously, is to be involved in these projects at the beginning. And the reason that's important outside of the lighting aspect of it is it gives the integrator a chance to work with these other trades, the interior designers, architects, et cetera, and the homeowner, and design a technology package that complements everything. So you can put invisible speakers in a situation where it doesn't take away from the aesthetic. You can put small aperture speakers in the ceiling that from a distance kind of match the aesthetic of the downlights in there. That's the benefit of it. I have a really funny story, probably my favorite story since we've been in lighting. I was playing golf with a builder and an integrator, and I got paired up with a guy from the builder. And the intent was he was kind of stuck in the old way of doing things. The electrical guy is always going to supply the fixtures. That's never going to change. And the integrator wanted me to have a conversation with him about it just because I come at it from a different angle. I'm more national than he is. And so we played terrible in the front nine, so I didn't bring it up. We started turning things around in the back nine. We're both in a better mood. So we started talking about it. I said, are you seeing the integration channel start to supply fixtures? He's like, that'll never happen. It's been done this way for too long. I don't even see why they would want to. I'm like, well, that's not what I'm seeing nationally. And we kind of got into that conversation a little bit. And why I thought it was so interesting is because later on, we went to dinner and he brought it up on his own to the integrator. And he said, so it sounds like you guys are getting into the fixture side of things now. And they said, yeah, absolutely. And the reason why I like the story so much is because after we started talking about it for 5 to 10 minutes, he looked at him quizzically and he's like, that means you got to get involved right away when these projects come out. He said it like it was a bad thing. And they said, yeah, absolutely. And this is what we've been wanting all along, and we're never involved early enough. So it kind of made me think, is like, do they not invite us because they think we don't want to be there? I mean, what's going on, So, but I think long-term we'll be there at that stage and can have those conversations with the design community and with the homeowner to make this an overall better experience, not just lighting, but everything. It'll all look like it belongs in the space.
I want to circle back to the money part of this. If an integrator can double the revenue of their entire business by adding one category, it's inevitable they're going to give this a shot. In the world I come from there's a lot of people who love lighting, who are lighting designers. We're very passionate about this. But not every residence on the face of the earth can afford the opportunity of a lighting designer. When you look at the landscape of projects that either your agencies or all of your dealers are touching, what percentage of them have a lighting designer versus not?
That's a really good question, and it's somewhat market dependent too. My market's really diverse because we deal a lot in resorts. So it's, the Big Sky community, Jackson Hole, Steamboat, Aspen, Vale, Telluride, Park City, et cetera. Homes that are second, third, fourth homes for people with a lot of discretionary income. Some of those markets in particular, like Jackson Hole and Aspen, I would say 80+% of them have a designer attached to them when they break ground, a lighting designer. In Denver, that's probably 10 to 15%. So again, I was listening to your podcast that you did the other day with the two lighting designers. Correct. And I really enjoyed it and agreed with most of what they said. And, one of the things they said, okay, well, they're trying to supply fixtures on our job now. And, what's the value add? And that's a really good question. But they also said they don't really care because their job is their time. Their job is design and trying to make sure that's seen through to the end. I would say that my focus isn't on those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I've had integrators come to me and say, hey, we would like to supply the fixtures on these jobs. It's got a lighting designer. And one thing I've learned is lighting designers, especially a high-end lighting designer, they design with a lot of different brands. There could be 40 brands on one project. And out of those 40 brands, there might be 3, 4 that are available in my channel that they would have access to. At that point, it's not worth it to go after that, because that side of the business, being in the spec side, the commercial side, and our residential side, completely different ways to go to market. And not understanding how that works, it's like climbing Everest, I think. So oftentimes I'll tell them, just let the electrician handle it. Work on the control side with them, make sure that it comes off without a hitch, and it's a great experience. But outside of that, let it be. What I'm interested in those jobs, those 80% of jobs in Denver, and the other 20 in the big markets. And you go to the mink states, as you go in further in the country, the lighting designers go down. It's probably 95% that don't have a lighting designer attached to it. So that's what I'm interested in. And that's why they're interested in us. There's a huge swath of that market that doesn't get served by the lighting design community or the lighting fixture, high-end fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they want to have access to. And that's what we can give them, because we're in on all these projects. So that's why it's important to both sides. To, I guess, to be a little bit more specific about it.
When you say you're in on the project, it means there's an opportunity to sell technology into the home. How do you see lighting? Is lighting technology? Is lighting a piece of technology? What is lighting to you and to the custom integrator?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I mean, there's technology in fixtures these days. So oftentimes, especially if somebody's getting into it, this is a really kind of a long conversation, but what we've trained dealers to do and kind of help them, give them some guidance on doing and give them some tools to be able to do so, is to go in and to your partners, your builders, your electrical partners, because oftentimes they're like, builders are trying to protect their electricians. Electricians kind of think, are you coming after my revenue? What's going on here? And design community, whether it's interior designers or architects, and explain why you want to be able to do this. And a lot of it is if there's no lighting designer on the project, it's kind of maddening that you'd be asked to control a fixture that you had nothing to do with specifying. And especially a lot of these jobs are where there's go-to brands that are cheap, $20 cans or something like that. The dimming performance is poor. They'll flicker on dimming. It could be the color temperatures don't match. There's all kinds of things happening in this. And so if they're able to convey what good light versus bad light is to a builder, the people that care, then they're going to give them an opportunity to fix this and to guarantee that this is a fixture package that's going to work with the controls that they're putting in it. That's step one. Step two is taking it beyond that and adding human-centric lighting, tunable white light, tunable color light, RGB, tunable, etc. So that's the next step. That's where real technology comes in, and they can add even more value to it. I personally think tunable white is a bigger play than color. And I just say that because of what it can do kind of with the outside, bringing the outside in. I've lived with color before, and I thought it was the coolest thing until I lived with it, and then I never used it. That's just me, but I tend to hear that a lot with a lot of people.
Color's great for a moment in time.
Yeah. So, but maybe other people they don't agree with it, but that's kind of what it was with me. But tunable white has a legitimate place, I think, in a home, and it's super cool and it's comfortable. It makes life easier to live in. It makes the environment a more comfortable place to be.
When you look at the product offerings, the scale, the range, and the opportunity to quote upsell to an owner right now, given where custom home integrators, these dealers sit in the market today, not looking forward to the future or not where they've stumbled, but what they're doing today, where are they winning right now? What is the opportunity that they're able to pick up and perform with?
And In terms of lighting, are you asking?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting because I think I have a dealer who's probably going to be in my top 5 this year for dealers. And I had a conversation with him. He's putting up some numbers. And I said, how many of your projects are you getting lighting on? And he said, you know, if he's doing 50 projects, he's probably getting lighting on 3 or 4 of them. It's tiny. And that's probably more than a lot of people are doing, right? So he's doing, it's everybody's at a different stage. That's another thing, is that some people dove head in 3 years ago, 4 years ago, because it's been supported heavily by the buying groups. So they've been hit hard by the fixture manufacturers, by the rep groups, and by the buying groups. So they're getting hit on a lot of different sides on it and educated and whatnot. So everybody understand it. And as the buying groups start, that means the higher end of dealers or the larger dealers start, and then that trickles down into everybody else too. So where they're having success is some markets have success with retrofit. Hey, we're coming in here doing this stuff. You have these old, really ugly downlights. Let us throw something. It takes me longer to unbox it than it does to throw it in ceiling. So let us do that and at least increase the light down here. That's a really easy category to have success with. Now, a lot of them made it past that and are able to just at least have access to the downlights and do some linear. DMF has come out with a product called Phase X, which is tunable white over the power line, controlling over the power line. It's pretty revolutionary, and it really makes it super easy to install, to control, etc. That's the kind of thing that we need. That's going to be an easy way for integrators to go in and put tunable white into homes. Because before, that's what Ketra has really easy control solutions. It's like on a loop. So this is the same kind of a technology. So that we need the lighting manufacturers to kind of come out with the technology that supports where we want to get it long term, and that's a really big step in it. So we're seeing a lot of that coming. It just started shipping not too long ago. So we're pretty excited about that and where that's going to take the industry, because once you get something like that going, then it just kind of blows up, in the whole territory.
It's interesting that you mentioned manufacturers need to, so to speak, create this technology when the core purpose of the integrator is to take a bunch of technology and put it together and make it work. What is the gap right now of getting people excited about lighting from that technology perspective versus, you mentioned earlier, good lighting versus bad lighting?
Well, it's funny. They're excited about it, but they also know that it's a daunting task. There's an integrator here in town who's a really good friend of mine, and we had a conversation about a lot of things. And one of the things he said, which has always stuck in my mind, and this is a perfect example of it, he said, any new technology that comes our way, for example, fixtures, I'm going to lose my ass on this first job. No doubt about it. I'm going to do another job, and I'm going to lose my ass again on it. By the third job, I should be able to come close to breaking even. And by the fourth job, I'm going to start to see daylight, and that daylight will get bigger from there on out. So it's an investment, and it's a commitment to jump into a category like this. But at this point, they kind of have to, because everybody's doing it. It's just, we're trying to make it not the Wild West, because there's so much knowledge you need to have. We're not installing it, so you don't have to hire guys to go install this because the electricians will do it, but you got a project management. And, linear is a whole different ballgame. There's a lot of different aspects to this that you have to be really well educated on. We're trying our best to help with this. And rather than just go out and throw your hat on backwards, dive in and hope it works out. And so it's just it's a whole different way of doing things. There's different aspects to it. And so we're not perfect, and neither are they. And we're making mistakes, we're making them together. We're trying to work through it. It's just like any new thing. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to lose your ass, and you're going to make a little bit more money on the next one and the next one until you start seeing daylight.
It's interesting you bring up the chance to do it with the known factor that you're probably going to make a mistake. If a TV or a speaker doesn't necessarily work right, okay, let's go fix it. If the lighting's not good in a home, it can render the home useless.
Sure.
Right? That's how high the stakes are here. The stakes are to the extent that if you're going to try and do something more fancy, but you don't know what you're doing, you could be paying for drywall and studs and all this other stuff. Have you seen anyone mess up that bad yet?
No, because I think guys intentionally kind of start small and work their way big.
Okay.
I haven't seen anybody just dive in and do something crazy. So they're swapping out a $20 downlight that might not work with the controls, probably flickers, crappy dimming performance with, maybe a $200 downlight, which is a really high quality light downlight, 98 CRI, great dimming performance. And right there is a big aesthetic upgrade. There's nothing intentional about it. It's not a lighting design, but it's just better lighting than what was originally intended to be there.
And that's
kind of where they're starting.
That's step one for these dealers. Okay.
And then that gets you in. You kind of learn how things are done. Maybe you've added a little linear. Oftentimes there's not even toe kick or undercap or something stupid, that you can add to that, and start small, work your way up. I'm sure there's guys that have done it, started huge and made all kinds of mistakes. I don't know. I personally don't know of any, but that's, I think, what most guys are doing is trying to get a handle on it and just trying to get the opportunity to sell fixtures on a job.
If the integrator has 50 projects a year, they're getting 3. It is kind of the Wild West of education, right? You guys mentioned you're trying to help doing that. Obviously, every manufacturer is going to try to help do that, but everything's going to be, purposely driven to lead to the sale, to the opportunity, to everything else. You're on your own journey, but you're 5 years into it, right? What are you seeing that's being dismissed? What are you seeing that's being adopted? But most importantly, what are you seeing that still needs to be addressed that's not been addressed yet?
The biggest thing I see is, how do you manage a project? And, when I say that electricians have their go-to fixtures, they do, and they know what they're doing with it, so they install it and go on to the next job. You're not involved in that. You come in after the fact or whatnot. When they're buying that package from you, oftentimes you'll have to hold their hands. Maybe it's something they haven't installed before, or maybe they just are being difficult. They say, "This is yours. What do you want me to do with it?" Kind of a thing, And linear on top of that is a whole nother ballgame. I'm going through an aspect on a big linear design right now, and there's 40 emails back and forth on little itty bitty things that change. Things change all the time. Measurements change, but then aspects of what we want it to do, there's a lot of back and forth. So I think that's where right now where we're lacking is training these guys on how to manage a project, what to look out for, what's the do's and don'ts. Downlights are fairly straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Linear and some other things are, maybe art lights or whatnot, are a little bit more intricate and need some guidance.
Are those do's and don'ts or the things to manage? Is that on the installation side, the design side, the part number and ordering side of it?
A little bit of both. We're having an event sponsored by our Lucetta, which is our diode and Elemental. It's one of our linear partners. They're coming in just for that, to start talking about that, is bringing in dealers at a Top Golf. Let's go have some fun. And then afterwards, let's bust off into a room and talk about some business, or maybe it's before, whatever. But the whole goal of that is, it's not salesy. Here's not how to sell linear. We're assuming you already sell linear. Now, how do you measure what exactly are the do's and don'ts to try and save that? And that's the kind of thing that I'm really looking to do. Is it seems like linear is the big ouch point. And quite honestly, we haven't yet quite got into a lot of the huge things that, like a lot of mono points and track stuff that really kind of stands out in a job. We'll get there as we get into more design oriented jobs and get our foot in that door. But right now we're starting to sell a lot of linear, and they're on a lot of plans. Every plan has it. And I think right now it's 30-ish% of a job in terms of cost.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably going to grow over time because it's kind of a cool thing aesthetically. It's way better than a downlight, in terms of like what it does. It's indirect light. So it's a big focus of mine. And I think the biggest mistake is integrators don't know that. They're like, oh, Jesus, until you get into it, and then it's too late. Then you're into the fire, and then the electrician don't care. This is your spec. Figure it out. And it's not an easy thing to figure out when you're on site. I want to identify those problems before they go on to it.
You brought up our second point about the big issue, right? Education and then timing of a project. There's a natural progression, as you mentioned with your story, the general contractor, and just maybe starting to call the integrator earlier once it's there. How much earlier is earlier, and what tools or resources or staff or people have you seen dealers develop that when that early opportunity shows up,
So I have a team that doesn't do design, but I would say it butts up to what design does. A lot of times dealers will bring me in at those situations, or the people that work with me to help walk them through it, because we're the experts. And we do know a lot of what a fixture can do and what the intentional purpose of a fixture is, much more so than them. And some people will hire a designer. Some people will contract, like maybe there's designers that make themselves for hire. Like Can Help You is a design company that works in the channel. They'll hire them. There's a bunch of things. There's a bunch of resources available to an integrator who finds himself in that position.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to slowly get your way up there every time. And like I said in the beginning, when we first started talking, I expect that a lot of these guys are going to have a go-to, whether it's somebody on staff or somebody that they can rely on that can kind of come in and talk that. I don't expect that to be the sales guy necessarily. They can talk big picture, but when like, again, I listened to your podcast the other day with the two designers, and everything is very intentional. I'm not expecting a sales guy to talk that kind of detail. You need a professional for that.
Mm.
It's really kind of an art form. I really think that it is. It's what they do. It's really awesome. A sales guy or an owner is not going to talk to that kind of level. It's their job to go in and get the interest. And then once it's sold, hey, let's come in and really dig into the details and figure out what we want to do here.
I'm curious, where is this going, right? Lighting's really complicated. There's 500 spec lighting manufacturers out there. Most homes aren't going to end up with a royally elite, beautiful lighting design. Plans are going to come in. You guys are already offering a service to basically say, put linear here. How far is this going to go in this channel? How dumb does lighting, how simple does lighting, how unexciting yet easy to plug in does lighting need to get for this channel to be able to take full advantage, for dealers to grow their revenue by 100%?
I don't think it needs to be simple, because we deal with complex things. When I said earlier that DMF came out with a easy solution for tunable white lights, there's already a solution out there that they compete against, and that's Ketra. That's fairly easy. And so it's competitive now, right? That's kind of what I was getting at. But, let's go back. I don't even know how many years. Is it 10 years? Is it 15? Shades came calling to this industry. Who the hell ever thought an AV guy would carry fabric books into a thing and start selling and installing shades? Everybody said this is never going to work. And now dealers are putting shades on every project they go into. They're putting lighting controls in every project they go into. And if you add those two together, it's their biggest spend. It's where they're making their most money. And that's what's going to happen to lighting fixtures. And it's going to happen to lighting fixtures because they kind of understand it already, because they're doing controls already. And they have the wherewithal and knowledge to learn it pretty quick. And the opportunity is there. And so they're going to dive into it and get to know it and embrace it, which they already are. The numbers are starting to show itself. So I would argue that right now they're doing lighting controls and shades on every project. They're going to be doing lighting design in every project. And that's probably not going to, it's going to take a few years to get there. It's going to trickle down. We service a community, and I'm not talking about the hang and bang community. We service a community that can afford everything we're trying to sell them. You just have to be able to communicate the value of what you're trying to add. If you can do that effectively, and we will at some point, you're going to be doing some sort of design on every job that you touch long-term. I wish I knew what that long-term meant, but yeah.
So lighting is two-pronged in the sense that dealers have an opportunity to sell not only a product, but a service. When you look at the product versus service ratio on a dollar value, let's take round numbers for a second. Let's just say the total lighting package, services and product is $100,000. Making it up. How much of that is product? How much of that is service?
That's a really, really good question. And that's one that I really can't answer because it varies per dealer. And I know dealers that do design for free, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe it. So I don't think they should. Your time's valuable. I think you should be charging for design. But there's dealers out there that really need to win the project, and that's one of the ways that they do it. So I disagree with that business model because your time is valuable, and you should be charging for it. But I wish I knew the answer to that. I just don't. It's different for every dealer.
It's interesting sitting in my chair. I mean, I love lighting. I've been in lighting for my entire career, 17 years. I'm not a lighting designer. People ask me all the time, oh, Sam, what do you think of my lighting? Can you do my lighting? I'm like, no, Like I can't actually. I love all aspects of lighting, and yeah, maybe I've dabbled here and there, but like I don't have that design thinking, that design mindset. You know, the the AV community, the dealer community, they're smart people. They like to learn, they like to roll up their sleeves and get dirty. How much how much of a technical mindset versus a design mindset exists today versus needs to weasel its way into this community?
Yeah, they need to understand the category, but I think this channel is a little bit different in the fact that most people that work in it and most people that own businesses in it, they did it because they're passionate about it. They're audio video files kind of thing. And that's why they do it. So, being in this industry isn't the easiest thing. Running a business in it isn't the easiest thing. They do it because they're passionate about it. So people that are passionate about something always dive into it and get to know it on every level. Rule of thumb anyway. So obviously there's outliers out there in every channel. But so it's a little different, I would say, in that aspect of it. Any meeting I go to, I'm generally the least technical in it, and it's no secret, these guys know what they're talking about. And even just the sales guys to the owners, they all know the technology pretty well. And when they get into a new channel, they're going to understand that. There's going to be nothing different there. They're going to understand that channel from a technical aspect of it, soup to nuts at some point. So it's just a matter of when you get into it, where's that knowledge when you're first starting to creep into it? Because you're not going to be an expert by the time you're starting to get into it. So they'll get there and they'll enhance and they'll help develop the technology as it goes along because they know what they need. They know what they can sell. They know what's being asked for. And so that kind of helps the community, the lighting community as well.
On projects without lighting designers, elite level lighting designers, who's leading? Who's the dealer that's leading? How are they crushing it? What are they doing?
Yeah, they're starting to have those. They've had those conversations already with their design partners, their build partners, and got the opportunity to go in and quote the fixtures, put the ECs at ease, saying, hey, we're not here to steal anything from you. The only thing different is where you're buying your fixture package from. And arguably, because we're improving the experience for the end user, there's going to be more light. There's more labor to do that light. It's not a greed thing. It's just anything costs money. It just does. So those are the guys that are embracing those partnerships and bringing in those partners and making them understand what the opportunity is and why they're asking for the opportunities. Those are the guys that are winning. And those guys that are going to get there the quickest because eventually they're going to get invited at the beginning of these things. Builders are going to say, hey, we've got a new project. We like what you've done. Can you come in and talk to the homeowner and the design community? Let's get you all in the same room and let's get this project off on the right foot.
For the people that don't get that opportunity, you mentioned earlier that you guys, as a rep, you have a service that just kind of butts up to design. What gap does that fill?
It provides an integrator with most things that he would need. I mean, they can bring us, say they can get an opportunity. Sometimes they'll bring it without even an opportunity. They'll say, here, we've got an opportunity to bid this job. Here's the plans. What would you do to this? We give it, and then we put out, we have, I don't know I have no idea how many lines we have, probably 15 or something like that. But we've tried to develop a line card for all 3 territories that give us a solution for most things in a project. Most major things. You're always going to come up with weird stuff that we don't have a solution for. And I'll never have a solution for everything probably, but I want to have a solution for most things. And so we go in and we'll set up a scope call with the dealer, what is there a budget, and get as much information as we can and then put together a design. I say design, but it's not really a design. Put together a layout package for them. And in turn, it gives them access to PDF. We can do CAD, but we charge for it. But PDF is free. And it gives them access to the fixtures schedule along with links. And it gives them access to a quote. And we can break the quote by brand or whatnot. They can in turn take that package to a builder partner or who maybe it's an end user and show them, hey, look, here's what you got. And here's what we're recommending you do. And here's why. We also are able to do CAD and renderings. So the renderings, I think, are important for 2 reasons. I think renderings are done often. So end user can say, hey, here's what your space is going to look like. For us, I think it can be more of an educational tool because a lot of these guys don't know what good light is. So we can take it to a builder, an end user, whatever that may be, or maybe an architect or a designer. Like, look, here's what you've designed and here's what the lighting package is right now. Here's what it's going to be once we get involved. And they can see what that upgrade looks like. And it's shocking. It's like, wow, okay, now we're talking. So that's another reason why renderings are so important for us. And so we'll do a before and after and let them take it. And that's just it's a sales tool for them, right? But we do all that. We charge for CAD and we charge for renderings. Everything else is done for free as a value add for the dealer to try and help them break into the fixture category.
You picked two words very intentionally earlier, which I picked up on. It's not a design, it's a layout. You know what the difference is. It's possible you have the opportunity to educate the dealer, but how does it make it to the contractor? But most importantly, the end user. There's still more to do here. Like, it's not a design, it's just a layout.
Well, it can get close. I mean, it's sometimes they're just not willing to spend $4 a square foot or whatever it is on a design. I would anticipate that I'll probably get into design at some point myself. And at that point, then we'll start having those conversations. But what we're doing, there's a lot of value add. And, we're doing art. I mean, we're doing a lot of different things. So I wouldn't denigrate what we're doing at all. And we're doing most of it for free. So, like I said, we're doing it as a value add for dealers. We invest in our brands and in our dealers to try and make hay for everybody. And that's the whole reason we did it. And it's a big investment. Like I said, again, the secret sauce is that 3 companies help fund it. So, and all three territories have access to those services. So it's a big advantage for us to be able to go into a dealer and be able to talk about these things and offer it for free. But I wouldn't dismiss what we're doing and saying, hey, this is not, you need this. This is pretty damn adequate what we're providing them. There's a huge upgrade in what we're providing them and what's spec'd with 4 cans and a fan type of thing.
When you look at the lift that you can create, just having more than basic knowledge of lighting is something that goes in a building. It becomes a layout, and as you mentioned, close to a design. You could hire a designer and tomorrow, quote, it's a design. I don't really know who makes the call on what is and is not a design.
Yeah, right.
But I do know who makes the call on whether someone's been designing for a year, a decade, or an entire career of 25 years. There's an interesting question out there, and I'm just genuinely curious to get your opinion on it. What can a lighting designer with 20 or 30 years of experience do that someone who's at a dealer who even has hired a designer can't?
That's a really good question. And maybe I'm not an expert enough to answer that, but I mean, what designers generally are very intentional with every single little aspect of a job, which is really cool. And, there's so many things that you could stumble upon that you have no idea the amount of thought that went into that. Be a simple small little, monopoint that aims somewhere you wouldn't even think, but it does something really cool and you don't know until you turn it off. That's a huge aspect of it. They're so involved. That's the cool thing is they're involved in the beginning. They know what art is going where, what the furniture is going to look like and where it's going to be placed. We don't have access to that information most of the time. And in terms of what the difference is between them and an entry-level design person or somebody that's got 5 years experience, I don't know the answer to that either. I'm not far enough down the path. I wouldn't make the assumption that I do. I don't think I'm there and qualified yet to make that decision. But I do know what a high-level designer offers, and I think they're amazing. I wouldn't ever compare what we do to them.
I think there's a taste of just like cardinal knowledge, wisdom, and you can equate it to, how much does someone who's 50 know versus someone who's 15 know? You live longer, you learn more. Generally speaking, in construction, especially in the residential community, you learn through mistakes. Mistakes are inevitable, and we've brought them up a lot. In the 5 years that you've tried to understand lighting, identify lighting as a revenue stream for your business, which is simply, quote, reselling it. I know you're doing more than that. Where do you feel like the false starts were that you've been able to course correct?
We had plenty of them, but I think, originally when we first got into this, like any rep gets their hands on something and okay, let's go sell this thing, and I kind of learned pretty quickly that we can't go out and sell a downlight.
What was your first downlight line?
WAC.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, I think we're failing if we go sell. And when we did that, I, to be honest, none of us really knew what we had. We started going into it and then we started to develop more lines. So I learned pretty quickly that I don't want to go in and sell a downlight. I don't want to go in and sell DMF downlight or a WAC downlight. I want to sell the category. I want to sell lighting fixtures, the lighting experience. Why do we care? Why are we selling it to you? Why are we trying to sell it to you? Why are we trying to sell it to the EC? Why are we going to the builders? That's, I think, the biggest mistake rep firms can make is go try and sell a brand when you're just starting, when you're going into a dealer. I think you really need to sell the category. What's the opportunity? Why do people care? The people that you're talking to, why do they care that they're going to change buying it from somebody else to you? That's the big thing. When you can start to change that mindset, then you can start to make some hay and make some progress in the category. So that was the biggest thing that came to me, I think. There's a lot of conflict between the spec side and the residential side, because before this, the spec side sold to the residential side, and they still do. And it's mostly through high-end lighting designers. Those jobs come their way and they fulfill the jobs. So trying to navigate those minefields has been a little bit of a challenge. We try to keep the lines separate where we can, as much as we can. But there's always these things where we go to war. No, we should call on these guys. No, we should call on these guys. That kind of a thing. But generally it all gets settled and the dust settles in the long run. So nothing really else comes to mind, although I'm sure we made a lot of mistakes along the way. Just a lot of strategies that didn't really necessarily work out because we were just shooting from the hip. And once we kind of got an idea of what the opportunity was and why people needed to care about it, then we were able to develop a strategy around that and hone it in, and a process and a division around it that kind of helped dealers focus and be able to be successful at it.
If I had a book and it had 5 pages in it, like a little Cliff Notes book or a Field Notes book, I was going to give it to every dealer, right? What is the successful strategy, in your opinion, that they need to approach and adopt in order for this category to be relevant forever?
Align yourself with manufacturers that are going to help you succeed. Educate yourself on the totality of the category. Most of these guys, I think, understand now why they need to be in it, but you need to understand, why you're going and asking for the opportunity to sell the fixtures. It's way more than that, but that's what they think you're asking them. So they need to understand the value. Just like when you're trying to sell a homeowner, you need to be able to sell your value. Why am I here? The lighting designers on the podcast you did previously, they said, why do you want to do this? What's the value add? And so hone that down, educate yourself on project management, on how to sell it effectively. What's the value? What's the different tiers of values, and how to make partnerships. Your ECs have to be on board with this. They have to understand that we're not coming after their business. We're not trying to steal their labor. We're not trying to do these installs. It's just a different place for them to buy the fixtures. And then we need them to do the labor that's going to make this, a beautiful space for the end user. The builders have to be on board. They generally have really close relationships with those electricians as well. We don't want, you're not going to screw up the way things are done here. They have to understand that that's not what we're trying to do. So you have to be able to go out and to start developing those relationships, start holding CEUs for architects, designers, and whatnot. Understand where you fit in this whole thing. When there's not a lighting designer, we can do some pretty cool stuff that's going to elevate your design, because everything they're going to do is elevate the design community already, from the technology to the lighting. So it all marries together. I think this is going to be a really cool thing long term. These homes are going to be gorgeous, and the technology is really going to disappear into the background, and the lighting is the first thing you're going to notice when you walk into a space. And that hits all the marks. You walk into that, it's comfortable to be in, it's comfortable to listen to, comfortable to watch. Everything belongs, everything looks like it belongs in this space. So, but you have to get there, right? So you just have to you have to put together some sort of a team that's able to accomplish this. Make sure your sales guys are educated on it, and project manage. What does that involve itself in? You need to know the ins and outs of every aspect of lighting, what that looks like. Learn a lot about linear. What I'm seeing, that's got the most intricacies to it that you need to understand. Sometimes you're probably going to want to do it in measurements, just because they're going to knock on your door if something goes wrong or if something doesn't fit, not anybody else's. Just like they do now for everything else. Apple TV goes out, who they call, right?
Yeah.
So if the Wolf freezer goes out, sometimes they'll call you too. So
you're going to get a call for everything you sell. Understand all that.
Our trade is the only trade that really has the relationship when the sale closes. It goes on for years after. Everybody else gets out.
Trent, what do you want to know more about when it comes to lighting that you don't know today?
I love like where's it going to go? What's the future of this thing? Not just in terms of lighting technology, but communication. Like, what's the next big thing? I just love being surprised. It's like when you go to a trade show every year, you're like, geez, same old, same old. But if you skip a few years, you're like, whoa. So technology does advance, but sometimes it's slow. But I'm fascinated by where it's going to go. It's my favorite sector because it's different. When you're AV, not much changes. You get some cool products that come down your way, but it's AV. This is such a different thing. It's cool to have something new to focus on. And, the opportunity, there's a challenge behind it that I really dig. And I love working with integrators and helping them grow and giving them tools to grow. That's important to me. And it's important to our business to be able to provide that kind of thing. So that just kind of where is it going? I'm going to, I made a joke earlier that I'm usually the least educated in any meeting I go into. And that's pretty true, but there's value there. I just, have to provide it in different ways. And so you can always educate me on something. So I try and know just enough to get by and be able to provide value to the dealers. And then I got a staff behind me that.
Does lighting all encompassing, so the product, the technology, the programming, the design, does lighting become so big that it becomes the only thing a dealer actually focuses on?
I don't think so, but definitely some will. There's some guys that bust it off and do shades and lighting, or they just have a division, shades and lighting controls. And that's all they do. And they're good at it and they make a buttload of money on it.
For people who are professional lighting designers, it's a gold mine. The challenge is the level they work at versus where this, I don't even know, $500 million opportunity is nationwide to put lighting in people's homes exists. What can professional lighting designers with 15 or 20 years of experience do, or how must they think, or what should they consider in order to come into what is a very entry-level market and provide value that meets people where they're comfortable?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because when we first started, one of the things we tried to do is work with the design community. But when we ran into the issues of, like what I was talking about earlier, like any designer of that ilk tends to use 40 different brands in a fixture, and it just doesn't really work with the channel. So we tried to take a different approach then. So I'm not sure that it makes sense for a high-end designer to really even come into the channel. If I was them, I'd keep an eye on it for sure, because you're still going to work with them to some capacity. They're on every job that you're doing, especially if you're the type that wants to be involved through commissioning and whatnot. But as this channel grows, it's going to increase the need for design, and you're probably going to be more work coming your way because of it. But the designers that maybe are looking to, I think the ones where it's going to create value for is the entry-level guys or the middle-level guys, or maybe somebody's going to bust off and start their own business that works for a firm. And they say, hey, that's a great avenue to go in and start working with integrators. The only caveat is that you have to work with the fixtures that have made themselves available to the channel, which right now is, if you ask a lighting designer, it's tiny, it's small. I don't know what it is, maybe 30. That's growing. And as they see the opportunity, it'll come flooding in. And before too long, it's probably going to get flooded pretty quickly. But right now it's small when you look at everything. You look at any spec rep and they're going to have between 100 and 250 lines on their card. So it's a real tiny amount of what's available to them.
How big does a line card get for you guys?
I mean, right now we're pretty comfortable. We have
at 15 lines.
Yeah. I mean, it could, there's little nuances here and there that come up. But we're pretty comfortable in that we have a couple solutions for every kind of category, I think. So I don't know what I don't know, because I don't know what the world is going to bring long-term. In a few years, things could look way different. I have no idea. But right now we're pretty comfortable with where we're at. And I like the partners we have a lot, and we're confident in them, and we feel fully supported by them. So that's the big thing, is they have to be able to communicate effectively with us and with the dealers, and they have to provide great products. And if something does happen, because it's electronics, step up and support it effectively. Mm-hmm. So the ones that we have on board, we're really confident with in that aspect.
There's probably 100 lighting manufacturers out there that you guys could put on your line card. I'd say my opinion of the most prohibitive reason why it won't work. It's the way they do business. Everything's complicated. Everything's made to order. You have to take full liability.
Mm-hmm.
And volume really is the only thing that supports all those mistakes. For you guys, it needs to be focused and streamlined. That's my opinion. Now I want yours. Like when you equate the technology world, sweet big TVs, small easy TVs, network systems, speakers, there's a offering, but it's not infinite, right? There's the household names. They take 70% of the business in the channel. The price points are set. What can you relate lighting to today in terms of like that? Where is it? Where does it need to go? Or is it there with those 15 already and
Yeah.
they win?
I mean, in terms of what we're trying to do,
Product.
yeah, in terms of what we're trying to do, I think we can do it. It's a different animal than commercial altogether. And maybe there's more. I actually am not expert on the commercial lighting side. I don't know how many jobs they're doing a year or whatnot, but there's only so much probably bandwidth. How many speaker lines are in there? I'm not sure. There's probably several, but there's not 100 that are in this channel, So, the ones that kind of come in late are going to probably have a hell of a go at it, because there's guys now getting really well established. Because one of the things that people do, I've noticed, is when a fixture manufacturer comes into this category, and generally you see them at LytePOD for the first year, all wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, they don't know how to work in the channel. And I've worked with them, and it's a nightmare, because they try to do things the way they do on the commercial side, and it doesn't work.
Like, give me an example. What happens that makes it a nightmare?
They don't know that support is important. Like who am I supposed to call for this, that, and the other? I've dealt with lighting manufacturers that, like, who's my regional? Like who are my contacts? What happens if somebody has a sales or a technical question that we can't answer? What happens when something goes wrong? And generally that's a nightmare, because they can't even tell you half the time. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on here? It needs to be really well and effectively supported, or it's not going anywhere for them. And now some guys are making some money because they're acting as consultants. They go in and they say, look, here's the 10 things you need to do before you even try and sell in this channel, or you're just going to fall on your face. And a lot of guys won't ever give you another chance at it. So that is a big thing. So the guys that are here now, not all of them, but most of them have an idea. And some of them just hire guys that worked in the channel to come in and say, hey, how do we work in the channel? We know you don't know lighting, but you know this channel, you can learn lighting. And that's a pretty good strategy too.
Have you seen lighting get as easy as like a set of SKUs for a TV with any of your manufacturers?
In terms of that, you got a model, here's the price. And here's your markup. Here's what you sell it for. And go nuts.
Yeah.
So this lighting isn't that. And everybody, now they've kind of come with set MS. Some guys are like, you charge for it what you can. And some guys are like, well, here it is. But we think maybe it should be, that part is kind of the Wild West. So, but MSRPs are kind of not, whatever. Dealers can figure that on their own. But just how the channel works, how the support that's needed, there's so many different aspects of it that are flying that I'm forgetting about, but they really need help with that. And it's not their fault. They just don't know. They think everybody's buys lighting the same way, and it's completely different. And if you come into this channel and don't have it figured out, you're going to fall on your face immediately and not do any business. And the companies I'm thinking about in my head still doing no business because they just never tried to figure it out.
What do you want to happen that makes this all click, that moves it from 5% of every project or that moves it from 5% of the dealers' projects to 50% of the dealers' projects?
Yeah. I mean, the conversations need to start happening, and they need to, I think it's really important that they understand what the integrator is trying to do, the value that they're trying to bring to the table. And once they understand that and feel comfortable bringing the integrator in, they can start having these conversations and say, look, this is a super cool area that's got a lot of unique architectural features, but they want audio in it. Why don't we put it behind the drywall so nobody can see it, kind of a thing? And who wouldn't want to do that? If you're coming from a design aspect of things, that's a cool thing to be able to offer. Sonets makes these speakers that completely invisible and sound amazing. James makes these small aperture speakers that can go everywhere, sound like it's nothing you ever heard before. So they have access to all these products that can kind of accentuate things, and then they can put together lighting that accentuates the design aspects of it. What are the architect have designed for this feature. Why did she put this rug here? Or, whatever. They can make all that enhanced with simple, bring them to the table. And especially if it doesn't have a lighting designer already attached, they can kind of be that person, that everything.
Doing that with lighting obviously just has to happen earlier in the project. Yeah. Do you feel like dealers have to, do they have to hold themselves back and start with lighting and be patient for the other stuff? How do they become successful there?
To prove themselves. And maybe this is different. Maybe some guys, maybe relationships can get them in sooner, but if I'm an integrator, I'm like, okay, I got to prove myself. I got to make sure, I got to prove to them that what I'm doing here, I can pull it off. And it provides the value that I said it was going to. That's what I was talking about earlier. Let's just go and put warm dim lights, down lights in, and then walk away. Because that's what we told them we would do. And they're going to integrate with our controls, dim great, and maybe we'll add a little linear here and there. And it comes out great. You keep doing a good job and things keep getting a little better. They're going to say, why don't you come in? Why not come in at the beginning and let's start getting you in these conversations and we can actually get, because most builders, I think, know kind of what happens, but there's a lighting designer involved. And if they think they can pull you in on that and get that experience, I think they'd be willing to do that. But you've got to prove yourself that you're qualified to do this in the first place. If I was a builder, I sure as hell wouldn't pull an integrator in on job one just because you asked and say, here you go, because prove it to me and then sure thing, we can talk about it.
5 years ago, you didn't know about lighting. You're here today. 5 years from now, you're going to know that much more. You mentioned the hockey stick. You feel like you're approaching the hockey stick moment. When this takes off, what impact does this make for people, humans, and awareness about, holy shit, lighting matters?
It's going to be ubiquitous in high-end homes, totally ubiquitous, in my opinion. In 5 years, maybe by then. That's my goal. I think there's plenty of time. Once that hockey stick grows, they just need the opportunities and then they can go in and crush it. But I think it becomes ubiquitous in high-end, then it kind of slowly bleeds out. Once that becomes ubiquitous in our channel, people become aware of it, and then it becomes a thing. I think it can actually start bleeding down into mid-level and eventually long-term, getting into homes like what I live in or something like that. I don't know that I'll have a lighting designer by the time I'm off this earth, but I'll at least know what a lighting designer can do. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. First step, make it ubiquitous in my channel. Then we can worry about the rest of the world after that.
Is the $25 downlight gonna have to be enough, or will $150 downlight prevail?
Yeah, no, I don't think we need to go down that low. I mean, it's all about the quality. I guess if you can make a hell of a light at 25, then it's going to sell. But I equate things because we're the AV channel, which we're not. I equate it to a speaker. We're not selling speakers for $40, but they are in the production home industry. So there's something to be said for what we do. We sell stuff that is, it's an experience, and lighting's no different. I don't see, at least in the short term, manufacturers trying to play down in that space. There's room for that space, and it's in a different market. It's production home and whatnot. Kind of where they're doing it now. The problem is right now they're putting some of that stuff in the high end, and it's like, whoa. So we're trying to fix that.
I think the last question I have for you today is, the custom integration world traditionally has these buying groups, and everybody is a member of them and a part of them. And the lighting manufacturers don't understand that, but they're starting to understand it, and they're becoming a part of these buying groups. Where do you see these three big organizations playing the biggest part of pushing this whole?
When you say organizations, do you mean the buying groups?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, there's probably four main ones now. There's HTSA, ProSource, Azione, and Oasis is now, I think, an offshoot. So they've actually been integral for this. They've, ProSource and HTSA two dove head in first, and ProSource not years ago, but back around, I don't even know, 2021 maybe, developed educational classes to help kind of guide dealers and educate them. HTSA, Tom Doherty came out with LytePOD. Now it's kind of the go-to show for our channel and lighting. So they've been integral in this. I really like what HTSA has done in the fact that they've involved the reps. The reps play a huge part in this, whether you want to admit it or not. They're crucial. and helping move this along. And we provide so much value to our dealers. Tom gets that. So Tom has invited me to HTSA events, and it's a huge win. And obviously we participate and help really drive LytePalooza. I wish the other groups would do that as well. That's where one mistake I think they're making is they're not partnering with reps. We're not in any way a competitive nature to them. We have the same thing. Let's sell more of your brands. So that's the one thing that I wish would change in the other buying groups. But they're integral. They're pushing their lighting brands. They're going out and actively trying to get more lighting brands. I would say for the manufacturers that are getting into the channel and starting to get it right, make sure you look out for the one that fits you. And I'd look into joining, because all of your major integrators are part of a buying group, and even the tier down are, and now even the tier down from that are. So there's a lot of value in it for integrators, not just in the brands, but in what it provides from a networking aspect. These guys get together once or twice a year and are able to talk shop with integrators that they don't compete with, and really learn from that. And what are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? What's working? What's not? That's gold for an integrator. And so I always strongly recommend it for a dealer. If they have an opportunity to join one, do it, because there's some expense to it, but I think it pays itself back in spades. And then there's the obvious reasons with what they get incentive wise on the brands. They're all different. I don't really know or care what those are, but that's a benefit as well. So that's what I would say in terms of buying group.
Trent, thank you so much for sharing all of this. Thanks for chatting. I really appreciate your insight, and I appreciate you taking the approach that you've taken, which is just continue to learn, continue to figure things out, and bring people together. I think, like you said, it's what your job is, right? It's what the reps do. I know that you've been a big advocate for lighting for all the right reasons for everyone, including you and your business.
I want to thank you for inviting me. It's always great to hang out with you and hear your take on things. You're a super interesting guy to listen to, and this podcast, I hope, will become a big success, and especially in our channel. I think it needs something like this, and I appreciate you paying attention to it, because not a lot of people are yet, but I think they will in long term, and it always goes a long way being the first to everything, right? So I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's fun. I think anybody who gets excited about lighting can get me excited. It goes without saying. I think this opportunity is just massive.
Yeah.
Massive, massive, massive. Obviously in dollar and sales and all that stuff, but just in awareness.
Yeah.
And, lighting's exciting. Lighting's cool. And frankly, it doesn't have to be complicated. And that's what I love about what you guys are doing in your channel.
Yeah.
You're saying, let's just take it to a certain level and then let's jive and let's live with it. And that's cool.
Yeah. This is the very definition of fast paced, and it's about to get real fast, real quick.
We'll keep an eye on it. We'll check back in with you, and I'm sure we'll have more conversations. Thanks, Trent.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Sam.
See ya.
All right. Take care.